I only got into the Souls series with the Demon's Souls remake in December of 2020, which looking back on is crazy, as in that amount of time I've put thousands of hours into them, and they have become my favourite series of all time, and have offered me truly unique and special experiences no other game has come close to. I played through Demon's Souls and had a good time with it, although Dark Souls was when I was actually captivated by this series. Then after I played Dark Souls 2, which was a complete disaster, but then I was on to Dark Souls 3. Prior to playing I heard some mixed opinions on it, whether it being people praising the game for its amazing bosses and fun combat, to people criticising its bland world or just fan pandering to the nostalgia of Dark Souls 1. Now I was most looking forward to Dark Souls 3 as the bosses were my favourite part in the earlier games, although they never really impacted me as they were pretty easy and simple with just a few basic attacks to dodge and punish. But Dark Souls 3 apparently had some of the best bosses in the series, which excited me, so then I started my first playthrough and it was one of the best experiences I've had with a game. I want to start with the best part of Dark Souls 3, the bosses. Dark Souls 3 has undoubtedly the best bosses in the entire series, and a large part of that is due to its combat. I enjoyed Dark Souls 1's bosses due to the spectacle and the world of that game, however they left me wanting more gameplay wise, but with Dark Souls 3 the bosses have it all. You could almost make a top 10 boss list out of Dark Souls 3 alone, it's that good. The spectacle is great, there is a good variety, the bosses have large movesets, and with Dark Souls 3's combat they are fast paced and engaging. Seeing FromSoft games always have the best bosses, however Dark Souls 3's base game have a lot of great bosses too. You have Dancer, Dragon Slayer Armor, Nameless King, Abyss Watchers, Pontiff Sullivan, Twin Princess, Soul of Cinder, and more. The boss quality is truly outstanding and gets even better with the DLC. They are amazing visually, they have fast and diverse movesets, and what makes Dark Souls 3 so good in my opinion is that the boss design is made for a 1v1 rhythmic fight. A game like Elden Ring, for example, has bosses that almost feel unfair. Margit at the start of the game is hard for newcomers, as not only is he most likely fought way earlier than expected, but his moveset is punishing in a not fun way. He can do full combos, and then when you think it's your turn to get in a hit or two, he just attacks suddenly and goes into a whole new combo. It makes the game harder, sure, but it doesn't have the same engagement and enjoyment that Dark Souls 3 has. The bosses in DS3 have their combos they do, then they take a little break, giving the player time to get their attacks in, then rinse and repeat. This is a much better system as it's more engaging and becomes a fun experience when you master it, but with Margit you barely get any time to attack and it becomes a waiting game rather than mastering movesets and being able to punish bosses. Dark Souls 3's bosses are the best the series has to offer, for many different reasons that all work together to create these memorable fights. The world of Dark Souls 3 is a weird one for me. On one hand there are some amazing sights and good level design, but then there's a lot of bland and boring places that are just a chore to get through. I don't have a problem with the linearity of Dark Souls 3. I actually think it's a positive as it helps progression and the difficulty curve. But I do miss the exploration and the amazement of finding new shortcuts in areas that the first game had. Getting through the first half of this game is honestly quite painful. Going through terrible areas like the Road of Sacrifices and Farron Keep, and topping off with some of the worst bosses in the whole series like Wolnir and Deacons, it truly hinders a game for me, but thankfully at this point in playing the game for hundreds of hours, I just sprint through them as fast as I can. Something I do really like about the world though, is how you can see your progression. You can look back on areas you've already been, and also look towards areas you won't reach for a good amount of time. The lore has always been a major part of why I enjoy these games. The games being so vague and having to figure everything out yourself is why I think these games are so great and unique in the first place. No hand holding or quest log or cutscene every 5 minutes, it's just you in the game. Dark Souls 3 is basically just the first two games, but within a new cycle. There are 4 new lords who need to link the fire, and when they refuse you are brought from the ash to make them. The bosses have great and tragic stories, and the people you meet throughout all give you more insight into this decaying world. I love the discussion that this style of storytelling brings. It might not be everyone's favourite, but getting to debate about the lore due to the way you view it is why the community is so strong so many years later. The DLC is also incredible, and it's just behind Bloodborne's overall for me. Ashes of Ariandel is definitely the weaker of the two, with it being fairly short and only having 2 bosses. The areas look good aesthetically, and the enemies are fun to fight. The Gravetender boss is okay at best, but nothing special, however Friede is a complete opposite. Friede is one of the best boss fights in the series, and is pretty much an upgraded Lady Maria. Friede is probably the boss I still have the hardest time with though, as I still struggle with her combos and AoE attacks, combined with her very fast pace. Then we have the Ringed City, which is bigger and better in every way. The starting area is okay with the broken buildings and the drops into ash are cool, but it doesn't really start until you reach the demons. They're a very underrated fight, as it's balanced pretty well with their aggression in the first phase, and the second phase changing depending on which demon you kill first is a cool touch. Then you're brought to the Ring City with a grand reveal similar to Anor Londo's from DS1. It's a fun area, although the enemies are very annoying. But the peak of the DLC is of course the bosses. The Ring City has, in my opinion, one of the best bosses in Midir, who is the best large boss in the series, and one that's actually done really well. And then we have Gale, who I believe is a peak of From Software boss design, with great spectacle and a very complex and evolving moveset, which keeps you engaged, making it my favourite fight in the series. Dark Souls as a series is so special to so many people, and it truly is a unique and unforgettable experience. This series really changed the way I view games, as they were so different to anything else I have ever played, and I will cherish them forever. I love all these games in their own way, but Dark Souls 3 affected me the most, as the gameplay is my favourite, with the best bosses and great mechanics, with great lore making it one of the best games I have ever played. Thank you Dark Souls 3 for giving me such an amazing experience, and thanks to you for watching. I really appreciate it, and I hope you have a great day.